Good morning and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. I'm your host this morning, Tina Prigge. I am delighted to be joined by Barb Bundy-Jost. We're going to be talking about the Hort House today. This is programming through the Manitowoc Public Library. Barb, let's just talk for a second about the amazing award-winning Manitowoc Public Library.
I tell people at the public library, it took a pandemic to bring out real superheroes because their creative minds and the collaboration and the community that staff has built with themselves and the community beyond them. I just love the Manitowoc Public Library. And so to help support everything they do to bring all people together at the library, I will do whatever it takes to promote that wonderful facility and all those wonderful people that work there. So,
huzzah!
They're allowed in my house.
We're so fortunate that they have the level of programming and resources that they make available to everyone, no cost, and you're right, so creatively, and they pivoted well and went virtual, which is here we are today talking about the Hoard House. Barb, what is the Hoard House?
Well, it really was developed out of a necessity due to my affliction. I think I was born with a DNA that likes to collect things. And if anybody knew my mom, go into the Stage Door pub and she had a stash of stuff. But the Hort House was born because my three daughters came home one weekend and said, this is getting ridiculous. But you know, when you live in a house for 30 years, it just kind of builds up. You don't always curate the collection. So we started the Hort House because I like vintage clothing. I like vintage bags. I like vintage purses. I like anything that's older than me, and that is getting harder to find.
What's the first thing you ever started collecting?
Well, I think my mom took me back in the day to a woman that used to live on Water Street to pick up a basket. And so I think the first thing I picked up was a little picnic basket. And that is another thing that I collect. And so I think picnic baskets. And then I was always a big camera buff, and they started giving me cameras back in that. I was just a child. I was just a little girl, and I was taking Kodak pictures. So I started picking up Kodak cameras here and there. So those are things that have accumulated over the years.
Do you still have those in your collection?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard for me to get rid of anything, but yeah.
Amazing.
And then last Tuesday, we featured nuns. Okay. I have one here that we didn't talk about. This one's a bank. And as you can see, somebody took the plug out. So, put a quarter in there, take it out when you need it. We started with nuns because my grandmother would have me practice piano at her house, and there would be three nuns playing baseball, looking at me as I was pondering my piano and the keys. And so that when she went to the great beyond, I harvested those from her things. And so that kept her with me.
And so you did a cool walkthrough with your collection of the nuns last week that I'm sure viewers can find on the Manitowoc Public Library Facebook page.
Right.
Cool. So that was last week. That was nuns.
Right.
And then what have you got coming up?
Now I've got Barbie coming up because Barbie and I are very much the same era. I mean, I came out and then Barbie came out. So from the time I was about a year old, I have been given Barbies. And it really, like I said before the program, it doesn't matter how old you are. You're going to get a Barbie if it's Barbie. So we're going to feature Barbies. Like, for instance, this is the world's smallest Barbie.
Oh, look at how tiny she is. Hold your finger up once. Is she like about the size of your finger? Yep, sure enough. Look at that. A pocket-sized Barbie.
Pocket-sized Barbie. And then just one other, and these are just teasers, but my heritage is Norwegian, and you have to have the Norwegian Barbie. So
is your collection of Barbies, are they all still in their original packaging?
Many are, but then I have three daughters, and those kiddos played with them. I do have, and I don't think this was out for very long, but you all, if you tune in on Tuesday, will get to see the pregnant Barbie. Pregnant Barbie was not around for a long time. And I remember my youngest child, Harry, was big into Barbies. And she had to have that pregnant Barbie, and we went to Shopko at the time, and I picked up that box and we ran off, and she had her pregnant Barbie, and she took it out of the box and she was playing with it, and I thought, okay, I maybe should go back and get one in the box, because this is not going to last, because Barbie does not have her baby like babies are born. And I thought, all right. So I did go out and get that one and kept her in the box. So I do have many kind of collectible ones that are in the box. And so does that take up room? Absolutely. So we have that.
And so it's no coincidence that your name is Barb and you have a robust Barbie collection.
Robust, yes. Barbie Greenhouse I have from the 60s. Ooh, that'll be featured too.
So let's talk about, I'm going to put up this placard that shows your upcoming lives. So these will be live on the Manitowoc Library Facebook page. So last week you talked about nuns. So on Tuesday the 15th at 2 p.m., you'll be talking about Barbie dolls. And then coming up, you've got vintage clothing and vintage handbags and shoes. Tell us more about that. Are we looking at some vintage clothing behind you?
Right here. This is a very Pete Mondrian total 80s wool coat that was given to me because, of course, I spent I'm still in the Manitowoc Public School District, but that divine district has kept me around for over 30 years, and I used to teach art. So Pete Mondrian was a favorite. So this came my way. But in addition to that, I just have an affinity for vintage clothing. I have everything from the turn of last century to just something I purchased yesterday. Somebody asked me once, did Barbie influence your life? I mean, I do suppose. So particularly 50s and 60s clothing. So we're going to feature that. I have a lot of vintage Harley jackets, so we'll bring out some of that stuff when we do the vintage clothing. And then the very last episode is all vintage bags and shoes. My auntie never had children. My mother's sister, Auntie Pat. I loved her dearly, and she'd go to Mexico quite often and always bring back a little hand-tooled something for me. So I really, really went crazy over hand-tooled shoes and bags.
Wow.
And I know. And really, these aren't things you can just find
right
from neighborhood Kohl's. So we're going to feature the bags because I do have a ton of tooled bags and vintage bags that I have harvested.
Any idea how many are in your collection? Are we talking hundreds or?
Oh, maybe, yeah. That's a little sad. When I was director at the Rahr West Art Museum, the very first vintage collection we put together was Meet Our Director, the Collector. And when you have enough stuff to fill the main gallery of the Rahr West Art Museum, and that was in 2008. So things have gotten bigger since then. That's 12 years ago already. So yes, I have quite a few things.
Interesting. So how does the Hort House program work? So on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, if somebody tunes in, so you're going to be doing like a virtual walkthrough of your collections?
Right. And so last Tuesday we were in my bathroom. This Tuesday we'll be in my kitchen, which is where I am now. We're going because that's the biggest place to showcase all the Barbies. We'll probably do the vintage clothing in my living room, and then we're going to do tooled bags and shoes in my dining room. So we'll hit the first floor during this series. I know Tim, who organized the series from the library, probably would like to get upstairs and do more stuff. And I said, well, wait a minute. We'll curate what we can now. And then, once I get the upstairs ready to go, we'll do that. So that's a future project though, dear.
I do know I'm looking forward to your American Gothic collection at some point.
Any kid who had me in high school, it all started with a painting project at Washington Junior High. We took and studied the American Gothic, and I said, we're going to do a modern version of American Gothic. He's holding a pitchfork. What would he be holding if he was holding your favorite thing? And I think I did a sample one, and I was holding a Walkman. So that was the 80s. And
if kids are watching and they don't know what that is, you put a cassette tape in, and you had to push a play button manually.
And then I translated it to a compact disc, and then I'd wear that, and I'd go for my walks. But then the kids started bringing me, oh, look, I found an Elvis and Priscilla Presley American Gothic, or I found Cher and Sonny. So I started getting gifts. And it's great fun. It's just great fun. So we picked that up. Marie and Donnie, it's all there. And so I do have a big collection.
Does it ever feel like forced collecting? You know, for example, somebody knows you like American Gothic, so now everything that you get as gifts is American Gothic related?
Yes. Yes, we have entered that zone. Yes. As a matter of fact, where is it? That one back there, a student painted that in New York. When you're in art school, you do studies. So you look at the composition, you look at the paint color, and you have to match all that. And so I think they were sick of that project and posted it on eBay back in the day. And I don't know, I think I paid like $150 for it. It came wrapped in a tube. It was still damp. It hadn't dried yet because it's an oil. So I'm like, we added this kitchen on at the turn of the century. And I thought that's going to be great above my fireplace. So yeah, feed the frenzy. And then that just leads from one thing to another.
And thus the Hort House is born.
Right. When we do the American Gothic, I have a vintage 1970s shirt with the American Gothic on it.
Oh, too cool. Barb, you're too cool. I'm just going to put this up one more time. So we are talking Tuesdays in September at 2 p.m. on the Manitowoc Library Facebook page. This cool program is live from the Hort House with Barb Bundy-Jost. She's going to be featuring Barbie dolls on the 15th, vintage clothing on the 22nd, and vintage handbags and shoes on the 29th. I think this is going to be exciting, unique, super cool, unique to the Coolest Coast programming. Barb, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to tell us about it. And we will see you next time.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Aw, thank you. We'll talk again soon. Take care, Barb.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.